Welcome back. It's your host, Gina here, and I'm coming on for a solo episode today where I will be talking all about how to create breakthroughs in situations that feel impossible to change. This could apply whether you're dealing with something in your personal life or there's something going on in the collective and you feel like you can't make a difference, there's no change possible, there's no solution possible. This conversation will come back to what is within your control and help you shift from a place of hopelessness to a place of possibility. This topic was so important for me to share about today because I recently experienced this. I experienced a breakthrough in something in my life that felt completely impossible to change that I had been dealing with for 30 plus years, which is insomnia. I'm going to share with you the 9 steps that helped me make a life-altering change in this area and completely turn things around for me in the most incredible way, and I know can be applied to any area of life. If you've got something going on right now, whether in your own life or you're looking externally bigger picture and it feels like no change is possible, stick around for this conversation and see what opens up for you. All right, you ready to hear what made the biggest difference for me in actually having a breakthrough in insomnia after struggling for pretty much my whole life? Let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is apathy versus anger. If you've ever studied Abraham Hicks or Gabby Bernstein or David R. Hawkins, who wrote books like Power versus Force and Letting Go, you might have heard about the emotional scale before. And if you haven't, it's essentially a concept that every emotion has a vibration on this scale, from a lower vibration to a higher vibration. So for example, apathy is a lower vibration emotion. It's associated with feelings like hopelessness, despair, stagnation, and when we're in that super low vibration state, nothing is possible. No change is possible. It elicits a feeling of helplessness. So that's apathy. And then anger, even though anger is still a lower vibrational emotion, it's higher than apathy and it has more energy than apathy. So it can be a catalyst for change. So let me tell you how this played into what I'd been dealing with insomnia. Before I get into it, I invite you to listen to what I'm going to share in this episode, thinking about what that issue might be for you. So for me, in terms of insomnia, like I said, this is something that I have been struggling with for pretty much my whole life. So there are definitely different times in my life where I've been more in that apathetic state of nothing can change, woe is me, this is just like my struggle that I have to deal with for the rest of my life, and just feeling this sense of hopelessness, like nothing is ever going to be able to be different in this area. And a few years ago, when I was working with a coach, I was able to shift some of that mindset and begin to think about sleep differently, and the situation never changed. I really still struggled to sleep for pretty much ongoing my whole life, and it ebbed and flowed in different ways. So fast forward to a few months ago, towards the end of the year in 2024, I was feeling really challenged with insomnia, and it was getting to the point of severity that was like the worst that I had experienced like 10 years ago. I was barely sleeping, maybe a couple hours a night. I was super stressed out. I had a lot of anxiety about not being able to sleep, and it was really taking a toll on me mentally, physically, and emotionally. So then on New Year's Eve, I was like, all right, I am going to get in bed early. I'm going to wind down and I'm going to go to sleep and I'm going to get a good night's sleep. And I just like prayed for this. So I got in bed by like 9 p.m. and I am still struggling to sleep pretty fitfully, but I'm like in and out. And then all of a sudden the fireworks start at like 10 p.m. and fireworks were going off by my house from like 10 p.m. until 3 in the morning, it felt like. And with every wave of fireworks, I felt like my nervous system was being run over by a truck repeatedly. And it was so loud and it was just building up the stress inside of me. And then the anger was starting to build and I started getting so frustrated and like tears started coming and anger started coming. And finally at like 3 in the morning, I like got up in this like fitful rage of like, I will not be in bed anymore. This is miserable. I need to do something. So it's that energy that was building up that created a catalyst for me to at least get out of bed and do something different. So I got out of bed. Like I said, it's 3 o'clock in the morning or so. And I went into the bathroom and I poured a magnesium foot soak and I put my feet in the water and I just put my head against the wall of the bathtub and let myself feel whatever was coming up. So the first keys is understanding this emotional scale and letting yourself travel up it, even if that means shifting from apathy to anger. That's okay. That's still a step up the emotional ladder and creating more energy and more momentum to move yourself up and out from that state of hopelessness and despair. So if you're beginning to feel angry about the circumstance that you want to change, that's okay. Key number 2 is to let go of resistance and feel your feelings. So this is what happened when I was in the bathtub, essentially. The anger propelled me to get up and I went into the bathroom and gave myself space to feel my feelings, to feel the anger that was coming up, to feel the frustration that was coming up. And I let go of the resistance. I let go of resisting that I wasn't asleep and wishing that I was asleep, and let go of fighting what is. Because so much suffering comes from that. It comes from the resistance to what is. So being able to accept what is in the moment and let go of resistance is key. And this is, I don't want to say tricky, and it's something important that I learned for myself, is that acceptance doesn't mean you're accepting it permanently or you're resigned to the circumstances or you're apathetic about the circumstances. It simply means you're letting go of resistance right now in this moment. So for me, I was awake. That was the fact. I was awake and I was wishing I was asleep. So I was like, can I let go of resistance to being awake? Can I enjoy the feeling of the hot water on my feet? Can I allow myself to feel the anger, the frustration that I'm feeling in this moment without resistance, without judgment, without wishing I was feeling some other way? It was really a surrendering to everything. What is in the moment? Can I accept it? Can I embrace it? Can I stop fighting? So for you, whatever that circumstance is, again, whether it's something going on personally in your own life or whether it's something going on in the world, can you let go of resistance? Can you let go of fighting and wishing it was different and questioning why and shouldn't be this way and bringing all of these other thoughts to the circumstance? If you're able to begin to let go of some of those things and begin to soften into the moment and allow yourself to feel whatever it is. It's okay to feel anger. It's okay to feel fear. It's okay to feel any of these things. It's about letting go of the resistance to what is. So if you're feeling feelings, accept that too. Let go of resisting them. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to scream, scream. If you need to laugh, laugh. Whatever it is, give yourself the space to do that. This third key can sometimes be a tricky or more challenging one to look at. It's about asking yourself, what's the payoff? For me, when I asked myself, what's the payoff of me getting so emotional about insomnia, about me having so much stress and having so much anxiety and all these thoughts that I was adding on to all the frustration, all the fighting, what was the payoff in that for me? And oftentimes the payoff might not sound like a payoff, and yet it is in a certain way. So for me, when I'm in this state of talking about insomnia, talking about my struggles with insomnia, like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. One thing is it elicits self-pity. It allows me to kind of feel like, oh, woe is me. This is so hard. I'm struggling with this challenge. I get to kind of, as like, it doesn't sound like a payoff, but like feel bad about myself and invite other people to be sympathetic for me and like, oh, that's so hard and I get it. That must be so challenging. So I'm getting something. I'm feeding the ego in some way by allowing myself to be in this space. And again, it's a fine line, I feel like, between allowing yourself to feel your feelings of if anger is coming up, frustration, etc., versus indulging in them and attaching to them. So I noticed that I was letting myself get caught up in a lot of the drama and angst about insomnia. And when I do that, my energy is low and I'm not as productive and I don't have as much time and space to dedicate to the things I really want to. So essentially, it becomes an excuse for me to not live into my fullest potential. I have a reason, a good reason. Other people might agree with me that it's a good reason that's holding me back. So me attaching to this challenge and this problem has payoffs. And like I said, it might not seem like they're payoffs. You might feel resistant to thinking about it in that way at all. That's okay. And I invite you to consider, even for a moment, what might the payoff be of you staying stuck in this challenge? Like I said, for me, this was something that I've been dealing with for 30 plus years. So there's obviously some kind of payoff for me of being continually drained by this challenge. Otherwise, I would have given it up. I would have given up the stress. And whether that changed the circumstance or not, who knows? That would have been debatable. But that's not the question. It's when we attach to the suffering, when we attach to the stress and add that layer on top of the circumstance, asking yourself, what might the payoff be from staying in that place? And that might be counterintuitive. And oftentimes it's some flavor of when I hold myself back, it's a reason and an excuse for me to not expand, for me to not be visible. Maybe I have a fear of showing up in a bigger way or a fear of something that staying stuck in this challenge allows me to not have to deal with or not have to go after, because I get to use this as an excuse for not shifting into that, if that makes sense. So that's the third key of asking yourself, what's the payoff? Key number 4 is about surrender and asking for support. So now that you've let go of resistance and accepted what is in this current moment, now the next key that's made the biggest difference for me is surrendering that challenge up to the universe. And I say universe, you could change that word for spirit, you can change that word for intuition, you can change it for God, you can change it for your heart, any kind of higher power or higher consciousness that you believe in or relate to. Think about that. So when I say surrender, what that looked like for me in the bathtub, like I said, I was in the bathtub, I had felt my feelings, I had let go of resistance to what is, I had accepted, okay, I'm awake in this moment, I had embraced that, I had, tuned into my senses and felt the water on my feet and all of that. I had asked myself, what's the payoff here? I'd gotten clear about that. Then the next step was to surrender. So I prayed to God and said, God, I surrender this challenge to you. I understand that I don't know what the solution is here. I don't know why exactly I'm dealing with this or why this was the particular challenge that I needed to face in this moment. And I give it all to you. I surrender this to you and I ask for your guidance. I ask for your support so that if there is something that would make a difference in this area of my life, please guide me to a solution. Please guide me to a breadcrumb. If there's no solution possible in this moment, please let me accept what is, and please help me see what else could be possible. So this is about inviting in guidance. Again, this can be from your heart, from your intuition, from God, from spirit, whatever it is. It's letting go of trying to figure everything out with the logical mind and allowing yourself to be guided from that more heart-centered, spirit-led place. The next key is about opening up possibility and inviting in another state change. So we went from apathy to anger. Now it's like, okay, how do we continue climbing up that emotional ladder to a higher vibration emotion that's going to open up more energy, more creativity, more inspiration that could support me in finding some kind of solution or some way to spark change or breakthrough in this area. So what that looked like for me is I started thinking about, okay, what else could I believe in this moment? I could think about and believe there are other people who have had insomnia, who have had breakthroughs in insomnia. It is possible to change this. It is possible to have a healthier relationship to sleep. I'm sure it is. People do hard things all the time. People do things that they have never done all the time. My body is miraculous and it's capable of learning new things. My brain is capable of learning new things. I'm curious if there's something I've never tried before that could be supportive. I'm open to considering different possibilities. I'm open to experimenting with different solutions. So it's about asking yourself, what could you think that would be more supportive than what you're thinking now? So instead of me thinking back down to apathy of nothing is possible, this is going to be this way for the rest of my life, I'm always going to struggle with insomnia, it's so hard, all of those thoughts are not helpful. So asking yourself what thoughts could be helpful for you. And again, this applies if you're dealing with a personal problem or you're dealing with a collective problem, of even asking yourself, how might change be possible? How could that be true? How could it be true that this circumstance could change? And then start to think of examples of people or situations or circumstances that have changed. People who have done incredible things, people who have overcome incredible obstacles, societies that have overcome incredible obstacles, groups of people, communities who have sparked collective change. Maybe even examples of one person who had a dream and sparked some kind of massive societal change. Find examples and evidence of where positive change happened and was possible, to begin to bring your brain to a place of even considering in the realm of possibility that something new could open up for you in this area of your life that felt very closed. So yeah, when I think about apathy, it's like that very closed, like nothing is possible place to when you begin to think new thoughts, more empowering thoughts, it's like the cage begins to open and sunlight begins to shine through, even little by little, even if it's a little ray of sunlight that's coming into and breaking up the clouds, letting each thought break up the clouds a little bit more until the sky feels a little clearer and there's more spaciousness for ideas and inspiration to come through. Key number 6 is about being open to experimentation. So for me, this is about letting go of taking things personally and shifting to this state of experimentation. This is actually my theme word for this year, is experimental spirit. What this means to me is if there was, if you think of an inventor or a researcher or, the invention of the light bulb, what it took to continue to try different things. And that person is not taking it personally if their attempt didn't work. If attempt number 67 failed, it's like, okay, what did I learn from that? And how can I do something differently? What do I want to tweak in the process to see if changing this piece of it makes a difference? And it's coming from that space of observation, of evaluation, of learning versus this feeling of like, why God do I have this problem? Why am I continuing to face this? And adding again the suffering and the drama. So it's the letting go of taking things personally and inviting in more of an experimental spirit. And when I think about experimental spirit, I think of curiosity, I think of observation. I think of a willingness to try things many times and be committed to the process, again, from the belief of, I bet a solution is possible, or I'm curious if a solution could be possible. I'm curious what would happen if I tried this. So for you, think about what difference that would make for you. Where could you bring in more experimentation, more curiosity, and again, letting go of if there's something that feels very personal, like letting go of the taking it personally. And like I said, for 37 years, this was a big struggle for me of like, I added a lot of drama to insomnia and how I felt about insomnia. So it can take practice sometimes to let go of those things, let go of our practiced thoughts, our practiced habits, and begin to invite in a new way of thinking about something and a new way of doing something. So if it feels challenging to you, that's okay. You just haven't practiced it before. So little by little, step by step, see if you can invite in more curiosity and see what opens up for you. Key number 7 is about following the breadcrumbs and taking inspired action. For me, what that looked like is the next day, New Year's Day, after I had been so frustrated, New Year's Eve, I was like, okay, I need to take some kind of action. I asked Spirit to lead me, let me follow whatever breadcrumb is coming up. And I think maybe a week or so before, my sister had sent me an article about insomnia that had a bunch of different resources and different things in it. So I pulled up that article and I read it again, and it referenced something called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And I clicked that, and it took me to this website of this Harvard doctor who had created this 5-week protocol for insomnia based off of cognitive behavioral therapy. And I was like, well, what do I have to lose? Let me give it a try. So I bought it. And like I said, it was this 5-week process that involved both mindset work, which was a huge piece of it, and also making changes to my schedule and how I slept and different tweaks there. After trying this protocol for 1 week, it already started having the most incredible impact on my sleep. And you know, when you're a kid or icebreakers or whatever, and someone asks you, if you could have any superpower, what would your superpower be? I always answered that question. Oh, I could have any superpower. It would be that I fall asleep as soon as my head hits the pillow. That was like all I wanted. And now with this process, I am falling asleep within 30 minutes of getting in bed, which feels like the most incredible, miraculous breakthrough ever. And I'm 5 weeks or so in. I'm pretty much completing this 5-week process, and it's still working. I am sleeping more and more. From the beginning, when I was averaging 5.5 hours of sleep, now I'm averaging 7 or so hours of sleep. And I'm in bed for a much shorter amount of time. And my mindset is completely different around sleep. And my whole lifestyle feels completely different from following this one breadcrumb, which, like I said, feels like the most incredible miracle. And even though part of me could be like, why did this take 37 years to figure out? It's like, well, at least it didn't take another 37 years. Once you've opened up to that state of possibility and curiosity and brought in this willingness to experiment and really grounded in this energy, and now you've asked for the signs, so now it's about noticing them. It's about following them and taking inspired action. So whatever your challenge is, see what you're drawn to. Is there someone who references a book? Is there someone who references a practitioner? Is there something else that crosses your path that lights up for you and you're like, there's a spark there that's drawing me to that thing. Now it's about pursuing it and being willing to try it out and see what happens. Key number 8 is about evaluation without drama. Before finding the cognitive behavioral therapy, I was trying different things. I was trying different supplements. I was trying different practitioners, acupuncture, all different kinds of things, and evaluating what was working and what wasn't. And even though many of these things might have made a difference in the moment for one day, maybe a couple days, it wasn't creating lasting change. So it's about being willing to do that, being willing to try different things. And even if one avenue turns into a dead end, that doesn't mean it was for nothing. Because going through the process of, again, being willing to experiment, being willing to try new things, that's part of it. And if you get it right on the first time, amazing. And if you don't, that doesn't have to mean that, again, no change is possible. And that sends you back to that apathetic, hopeless state. It doesn't have to do that. You can bring in, again, what are the thoughts of, okay, this is one more thing I've realized doesn't work. And I'm willing to continue to try different things until I find something that does make a difference. And it's okay if I have to try multiple things before I discover that. Or maybe it's telling yourself or grounding in the thought of each thing I try, I learn something from. I learn something about myself. I learn something about a modality. There's something in this for me, even if it doesn't create the result that I hoped it would. So it's about being open and flexible and willing to experiment with different things and see what happens. Key number 9 is about grounding in the principle of the obstacle is the way. Maybe you've heard this phrase before, maybe you haven't. I'm also reading a book called The Obstacle is the Way that is phenomenal. And it's essentially about how the obstacles that show up in our path, we can choose to learn something from them. We can choose to focus on how we might grow from handling that obstacle. So this is again getting back into a more supportive state, a more supportive energy, a more supportive perspective that can help open up more possibility. So when I thought about insomnia, instead of staying in that place of anger and resignation of like, why God is this happening to me? It was realizing, okay, me navigating this challenge is going to help me learn something so useful for myself whenever some other challenge comes across my path that feels impossible, and will also allow me to learn something that I can offer to you and offer to the people that I coach and offer to my community of what helped me get through this experience. And if I had never experienced insomnia, I never would have learned this lesson and these tools that I'm now sharing with you. And I am so grateful to have learned these things. And I know they are going to be so useful to me in my life because inevitably there will be more challenge. There will be more things that I face in my life or that I see in the world that feel frustrating and feel impossible to change. And now I know from an embodied state and an embodied experience that change is possible. So for you, again, when you're thinking about your personal challenge, or if you're looking bigger picture globally of an obstacle that we might be facing on a collective level, asking yourself, how could this obstacle be a catalyst for the growth that I or we need right now in order to manifest our highest good? When you think of a diamond or a pearl, the pearl in the oyster becomes a pearl because there's that piece of dirt that it's rubbing against that's causing the friction that creates the refinement. So knowing that that's a part of life, obstacles, challenge, tension, it's all a part of life, and it's what helps us get stronger. It's like when you're going to the gym and you're lifting weights to build muscle, that's how we get stronger. So as much as it can be very frustrating in the moment to be dealing with many of these things, it's seeing if you can invite in any kind of perspective shift and asking yourself how you could choose to see it in a way that serves you. This isn't about minimizing what we're experiencing. It's not about pretending something we're experiencing isn't hard. This is not about that. It's about going back to the beginning of it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel grief. It's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel angry. And the more you give yourself space to feel those things and allow them to move through you, that's when you open up more space, more energy, more brain power, more heart power to see creative solutions and to believe that you have the power to spark positive change and transformation on a personal or collective level, because it is possible. You could find millions of examples of people who have done impossible seeming things. And I recommend you spend time thinking about that. Again, opening up to that energy of possibility, building evidence in your brain, because the brain is going to default to what's easy, what's known, what's familiar, back to that payoff of it's easier for me to stay small. It's easier for me to have excuses about why I don't have the energy to do X, Y, Z versus shedding those old preconditioned, pre-programmed patterns and stepping into a new level of possibility. It takes courage. It takes faith. It takes patience. And those are muscles that you can build. And if you haven't practiced these mindset shifts, these state shifts, that's okay. It's possible. It just requires willingness and consistency and commitment. I so hope this conversation opened up a little more possibility, ray of hope, ray of inspiration, or maybe even ray of anger. And maybe that's a step up from apathy, and that's okay too. I hope you got what you needed from this conversation. And if you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, all of that sounds great, and it feels a little challenging for me to do by myself, I would love to support you. I offer free 75-minute clarity calls that are all about getting clear on what really matters to you in your life, what are the obstacles you're facing or things that are frustrating you, and then finding out what would make the biggest difference to help you move through those challenges in a way that deeply serves you and supports you to create the vision for your life that you desire most. If you want to explore what having that kind of support would be like, go to ginacasbarro.com/clarity call. All right, my friend, I'm sending you so much love and that reminder that whatever challenge you're navigating in your life, it's possible that your experience of it can be different. Change is possible. A new reality in the future is possible. It all starts with being willing to see things from a different perspective. And no matter what, honoring and loving yourself exactly as you are along the way. Wishing you so much love, my friend, and I will talk to you soon.